I saw it.
There'll also be like a little bit of a delay, I guess. Kind of.
You know what?
No one? I can move over one and you can sit here.
I was counted before.
I'm happy to move closer
I'm
to Lorna.
around people all the time, so it doesn't affect me either way.
Come on. Look at how much space. Somebody knows. I knew you did. That's why I called you out and said,
I
come
know.
on up.
It's like the very first thing you want to do once you sit.
Oh, I don't like this. You should see what. See?
Jen, we're ready to go ahead and get started. So wait. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our first in-person meeting of the Board of Education in many months. Today is Tuesday, April 20th, 2021, and I'm welcoming you to our hybrid meeting where we have some of us here in person and a few folks online as well. Just as a reminder to my fellow board members to use your microphones. The red light means your microphone is on, so it's a little bit counterintuitive, and we can only have one mic on at a time. Without further ado, I will ask Cammie to call the roll, please.
Ms. Aronson,
Present.
Dr. Chang,
Present.
Ms. Poland,
Present.
Dr. Steinberg,
Here.
Dr. Thomas Farquharson,
Here.
Ms. Wilcox,
Here.
Mr. Zdanowitz,
Here.
Student Representatives Lillian Sweeney, and Rachelle Yarabelli.
And both students are here and are in the Google Meet, and I think that there's just a slight delay of them being able to acknowledge their presence. They're both here. Dr. Chang, can you lead us in the pledge tonight?
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We don't have a revision to the agenda order this evening, and so we'll move to public communications, and I'll start with anybody who may have joined the meeting by Google Meet. And is Nancy O'Leary here? I don't think she is, actually. No? And is there anybody in the room who's come to provide public communication this evening? All right, that was quick. We will move on to unfinished business, and we don't have any unfinished business. New business, and right to staff communications and reports, and to the superintendent's report.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks, and welcome back to the Ed Center, as we like to call it instead of Town Hall. Our kids have been back now for a month. Things have really kind of gotten into a groove at all of our schools as we move forward and we begin planning not just for this end of year events, but also for the beginning of school next year. One of those key elements will be vaccinations. We had our final second shot clinic for all staff last week, and tomorrow and Saturday we have clinics for our students as we've partnered with Yukon Health Center, which they've been great devoting times to our kids, 16 to 18-year-olds, and in the coming weeks, I would expect early use authorization for Pfizer to come in for even younger children, as that seems to be, they've begun that process, so we'll have opportunities this summer for even more of our kids to get vaccinated as we go into the school year next year. This afternoon, President Biden announced an extension of the school lunch waivers through the 2021-2022 school year. So for all of next year, meals in schools, as far as the standard school lunch, will be provided for our kids again. So that is very good news for our kids and for our families of West Hartford and throughout the country as we go forward. And tonight I want to announce that we are naming Melissa Caballero to the position of Director of Pupil Services. Melissa previously worked in Florida before coming to West Hartford in 2009, where she began her career here at Charter Oak. She currently serves as a department supervisor for pupil services, so she'll be able to spend the next couple of months working with our own Dr. Nelson, shadowing Gretchen as she's worked with her closely over the past few years, and will get the benefit of some on-the-job training before Gretchen leaves us. Melissa is innovative, collaborative, and most importantly, fiercely devoted to the possibilities of all children. This is a home run hire in what is across the state one of the most difficult positions to fill everywhere. And, we've known certainly that Melissa Caballero has the potential and will be a tremendous director of pupil services. And we know how difficult that job is, not just on any given day, but replacing Dr. Nelson and her legacy here is also something that would be intimidating. I'm not sure I'd be willing to take that challenge, but Melissa is. So we're very lucky to have her. I'm going to pass around all of our congratulations from the executive team and our staff and announce that formally tonight. So congratulations to Melissa. And I just found out that Hall is one of 15 jazz bands invited again to Essentially Ellington. That'll take place in June. It'll be virtual this year, but a great feather in Hall's cap as they move forward in that competition. Something that is just a great achievement for them. So that's all I have other than questions.
Are there questions? Actually, before we move on, can you talk a little bit about end of year? We're starting to think about who's going to which graduation. I don't know if you have any updates on any of the end of the year activities.
It's always a moving target. As the governor made announcements yesterday about May 1st and May 19th, and we're not sure necessarily how all those things directly apply to us. We had a conversation with the Department of Public Health today on the state level with superintendents, and there's still some distinction between what you can do versus what you should do as we move forward. But we're planning both graduations to be at Conard and Hall. That I feel very comfortable with. I feel very comfortable that caregivers for our kids will be able to be at Conard and Hall. Not sure about the numbers. Instead of, one thing that's likely to change, instead of moving it inside, we're more likely to have a specific rain date the next day, or just because moving that whole group inside, and we wouldn't want to turn people away if they had made that plan, especially because we'd so have to limit the number of people that could come in at that point. But looking forward to that. The principals have been working with student groups deeply involved in proms. Both proms will be moving forward. They both take place Memorial Day weekend. One of the reasons for that is because it fits into that time period after senior exams would have happened for advanced placement exams, but also gives 2 weeks before graduation in case there was any need for a quarantine situation afterwards, just so it kind of works out that time period. So that's not unique. We've had proms on Memorial Day weekend before, and we do take student feedback when we plan those out. So both of those are moving forward, and other activities, there's some music events that are going to take place outside, so more to come in the coming weeks as we go further with our plans for that.
Great, thank you. And junior prom or no junior proms?
No junior prom, just a senior prom this year, and then hopefully next year we're all back to normal. But we felt it was important for the seniors to get the opportunity for a prom. There are some districts that aren't doing it, but it's an event in kids' lives. And last year's seniors, though they didn't have a senior prom, had a junior prom. This year's seniors had no junior prom. So this event will only be open to them and their classmates, so it's a good bonding opportunity for them that night.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Amanda?
Thank you for that report. And will we get to hear at any of the future meetings about the transition into next year for the RLE kids and any kind of preparations that might be happening in the late spring for them?
Sure. Actually, we just talked about that. We're going to talk not just about summer activities and transition for summer school, and Mr. Vicens and I were just discussing that, but we'll also present a little bit on that. I mean, we are working with those families, and there'll be some opportunities at their home schools before the end of the year, but really that focus on bringing everybody back together next school year, as you said, and what exactly that will look like, the closer we get, the more we'll have information. So yeah, before the end of the year, we'll give you more details on that.
Any other questions? All right, thank you so much.
Thanks.
We'll move on to staff reports and board discussions, and I'll ask Mr. Ledwith to come forward for the non-renewal of non-tenured personnel discussion.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to see everyone in person. Every year at this time, we present a list of non-tenured teachers whose contracts are expiring on June 30th. And by state statute, the Board of Education has to vote to non-renew these contracts. And we're required to provide written notification of that vote to the impacted teachers. So before you this evening, you have a list of 48 teachers who we are non-renewing. Those are all interim teachers, all interim contracts. And I think we talked a couple times throughout the year about the large number of interim teachers that we were hiring throughout the year, and it's a direct result of the pandemic. Generally, we hire an interim teacher to fill in for a teacher who's out on a leave of absence. So that interim teacher knows that they're filling in for someone who's on a leave, and when that teacher comes back, they know that their contract is going to expire. The remote learning experience was an additional factor this year in hiring a larger number of interim teachers. So when we moved teachers from the building into the RLE, in many cases we had to hire an interim teacher to fill in behind them in the building. So again, that interim teacher knew they were filling in for a teacher who was in the RLE, and at the end of the school year, when that teacher comes back to the building, they knew their contract would end. So the good news is we do a tremendous amount of hiring from our interim teacher pool of candidates. So ideally, come fall time when we present our opening school report, many of the names that you see on this report tonight will be on that report in the fall, either as an interim teacher again, or ideally even a contracted teacher for next year. This pool of candidates that we hired this year was exceptional. They really were. And we would like to be able to find spots for many of these folks for next year. So following the vote this evening, we will provide written notification to the teachers tomorrow. We will, of course, thank them for their service this year and let them know that their contract does, in fact, expire on June 30th. But again, it's just a formality. They understand that. They understood that coming in, and they know that this is taking place this evening as well. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board had prior to taking the vote.
If I could, Rick, I just want to thank all these people. You see some of the names on here. These range from people straight out of college to people that answered our call when we called them because they had been retired and said, we need you. In this most difficult year, they came back to meet the needs of our kids. So, I mean, our deepest thanks go out to these individuals who spent this year with our kids in what's been a year unlike any other.
Yeah, thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? All right, is there a motion? And the motion would be to,
So moved.
thank you, Mark, and a second?
Second.
Second by Lorna, and the motion is to accept the recommendations to non-renew the non-tenured personnel.
Correct.
Correct, okay. Any discussion on the motion? If not, I will try your minds. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Abstentions? And the ayes have it, and the motion passes. Thank you so much.
Before
Thank
you
you.
go, Rick, could I just ask you, just because we haven't had the opportunity with everybody here, just to describe the non-tenure process and the review that we've gone through, because some of the members haven't had that opportunity yet, and
Yep.
what all these teachers get the opportunity to, as well as all the teachers that are contracted in their first 4 years.
So every year, it starts in January, so every year we roughly have around 250 non-tenured teachers. So every year we add, 40 or 50 new teachers, and they will be going through what we call the non-tenure review process for up to 4 years if they're brand new to teaching, or 2 years if they're coming to West Hartford from another district within the state. And we spend, so the members of the executive team will meet with every principal, every department supervisor in every building, and we will spend 10 to 15 minutes on each of these candidates, all 250 non-tenured teachers. We will sit down and we will review their performance over the year. And if they've been with us over a couple of years, we'll match that performance from the year before, and we're always looking for growth over those 4 years. So we have an exceptionally high barometer that we use when we're making a decision about a non-tenured teacher. We sit down when we're meeting with the principal and a department supervisor. We ask a lot of questions, but the big question we ask is, do we think this teacher has the potential to be within the top 5% of all teachers? So potential, so that we're not expecting them to be there, but we are looking for the potential for them to get to that level. And if a teacher we feel might not get to that level, then we'll have a tougher conversation in some of these meetings and talk about the possibility of that teacher, potentially not teaching in West Hartford and being somewhere else. So it's a very rigorous process. It takes a tremendous amount of time on the part of our administrators and on the executive team, but it's one of the most important things we feel we do every single year to ensure that we're getting the best, highest quality teacher to be here for the long term in West Hartford.
It's one of the processes unique to West Hartford in terms of the detail and depth that's gone into every year. When I speak to administrators from other districts have come, observed, and tried to mirror this process, but it also gives all of us a chance to get to know all of our new teachers in different ways, not just seeing them in the classroom, but talking in depth with department supervisors, principals, and assistant principals. So it's a deeply rich process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right. Now we'll move on to item 2, vision of the graduate. And I'll invite Mr. Vicens and Ms. McKernan to join us. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. It is truly an honor to be seated with you all this evening. Quite a privilege. And I'm privileged to have Ann McKernan, our Director of Secondary Education, who will really lead this presentation on the vision of the graduate. But I just wanted to offer some introductory comments. First and foremost would be a dramatic amount of gratitude to Ann for her leadership on this work and on this project. It is tied. It is a K-12 project, really a pre-K-12 project. When we think about what the vision of the graduate is, it's not necessarily the graduate in 12th grade. It's the vision for what we're trying to inspire in students in every grade. And when we think about this, we've just had the big budget presentations and everything, and we understand we're a people business in general. It's where our money goes, but we're a people business in terms of the product that we're creating, and the product of West Hartford Public Schools is intended to be a graduate who has a certain set of skills, attributes, and dispositions, a person, not just, there's a great quote by Yeats. It says, education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. So the concept that we're really trying to build persons, intelligent persons who can problem solve, who can think, who can empathize, who are prepared and ready. And it's part of our mission statement to prepare and inspire all students. We don't have the same privilege that we do in the hiring process where we just pick among the best. We have a responsibility to every child. So it'll be our privilege to talk about this vision of the graduate with you so that you can understand, you can give us feedback in terms of what we see as our charge. And also so that you can be able to place this into the larger context, not only of the Board of Education goals, but really our statutes under the state and what we're trying to do within other presentations that you've heard, as you've heard about the mastery experience and some other things, as we begin to look at how this vision for a graduate manifests into student work. So with that introduction, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Ann McKernan.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. And I just have to say, it is really nice to sit with you all again. I was thinking, when was the last time we really did it like this?
I think the last time we were in this room was March 9th or something like that, March 11th of 2020.
Okay, so just days before we went out. So it really is good to see all your faces. And I'm excited to be here tonight because this has been fun work, great work, and I think the heart of our jobs, what we're committed to. So I'm pleased to say that the vision of the graduate work has kind of been ongoing for almost 2 years. And so what we present to you tonight is a little bit of a culmination, although I would say before we go too far, we are still collecting feedback from groups as we go on. We have been disrupted by the COVID situation, and we've had some delays in contacting certain groups. So we're still getting feedback, but we are very pleased with where we are, and I'm excited to share it with you tonight. So about 2 years ago, we started with a committee of people who were really working on the graduation requirements. This did not have to come out of the graduation requirements, this work of the vision of the graduate, but as we worked on it and we talked about what students would master, what will they master in the mastery project? We certainly couldn't evaluate every pottery project or every research paper and all those different standards. So the committee decided, let's look at the districts that are using vision of the graduate and identify the set of skills and have students work towards mastering those. So that's really the background of where this came from, the new graduation requirement from the state that everyone in the class of 20, 23, and beyond would complete a mastery project. And then our question, well, what do you have to master? And it wasn't any one set of skills that was particular to a discipline. It was the set of skills that we as a community and the district believe will best prepare our children for their futures. So with that, I'll go to the next slide. So, what is a vision of the graduate? You can hit that again. And this is what's exciting, right? It's a collective vision that articulates the district's and community's aspirations. I love that word, aspirations, right? It's a powerful word. And it really saying this is our commitment to the children. This is the commitment we're going to make. This is what we're going to work towards. And that's why this is so exciting to me, I think to the people who sat on the committee. And even when we go to different groups and get feedback on where we are in our current state, we get some real, I believe very genuine interest and comments, and so it's been a wonderful process. I'm excited to hear what you guys, what you believe, what you see in the vision. So we can move to the next slide. So, why should we have a vision of the graduate? You really can think about it as like it can serve as a North Star. If this is what you hope you're going to produce with your children, if it's what they're going to embody and exemplify and what they'll practice, as Paul said very well, this is not intended to be starting in 9th grade to complete the mastery project. But how powerful will it be if in kindergarten, elementary school, middle school, high school, and then by the end, the students are speaking in the same language about what's important. It also addresses some key questions, like, as we say, what are the hopes, aspirations, and dreams our district and community has for our young people? Also, other questions like, how does this educational experience prepare our students for their future? It's not our future, it's their future, so we have to help them be prepared for for what is coming, and that's hard to know, but some of that thinking went into the development of the vision of the graduate. And of course, if it is a North Star, and if it is a North Star, it should direct our thinking. And of course, we spent a lot of time looking at our district mission statement, our school mission statements, to make sure everything was aligned, because it should inform our decision making. The experiences the students will have along the way to practice these skills will be quite important. And although I'll talk about the mastery project tonight as one time that they will definitely be practicing all these skills, I can imagine now, and I'm sure many of you can, all of these other opportunities along their educational journey where they can stop and reflect on their growth towards these goals. And I think that's just so powerful. We know student reflection is powerful, but when adults speak in a common language, same messages to students, and they have that opportunity to practice and reflect, I think it has a opportunity. I think it has a potential to be very powerful for students. So as we go on, I'm just going to review. It is, of course, in your notes. But our challenge was, of course, how will we possibly capture all of the things we want for our students in basically a brief, concise way. And that's pretty difficult. But what we really came up with is that we will not just list academic skills. Even though we knew it wasn't just specific academic skills, they would be transferable academic skills that you can use in all different disciplines, that still wasn't enough. And this is where I really thought the work took the most powerful turn, is when we said, let's talk about the attitudes and dispositions we'd like to encourage in our students. And so the committee came up with, and I think this is in your board report, this visual. And in the top row, you'll see 4 attitudes and dispositions that we hope to encourage in our students through meaningful experiences and messaging, and also 4 transferable academic skills that they will practice regularly. Give you a moment to look at that. The committee and people we've shown it to have the top row has garnered the most discussion so far, because I think people that my feedback is that people are excited to see attitudes and dispositions, and we have ensured that they tie very closely to the CASEL framework. That's the leading framework for social and emotional learning skills, and we can make direct connections of the way we are speaking of these and those social and emotional learning skills. And that has been the source of most of the feedback for us so far. So I was pleased with where the committee took this direction. And we can go on. The next piece, of course, was how can we get very specific about these skills? How can we really communicate what we mean? So we spent some time, and I think this will still be a work in progress, to make sure these descriptors are the best, are most accurate, most helpful for students. But we took time to really say, well, what would this mean? So when a child reflects on, am I acting with honor and integrity, we can give them some very concrete statements to think about. And this is where some of our work is now, in getting feedback on this and making adjustments. But so as I share it, it's probably more than a draft, but it is, it's not completed fully. I've already seen a few changes that I think we should be making, and we're happy to bring it back to you at that point. So we go on to the next slide. We, again, even this area hasn't engendered as much feedback yet, but a year from our work, because some of this work got put on hold for a while, look at it and say, I think there's some areas for continued improvement here. But we had some good consensus that these are the transferable skills that are most important, without getting too specific on any discipline-specific skills. These are the skills that they will use as adults and need. As we go on, I wanted to talk to you, because it's very important, if this is a community and a district's vision, that we get really good community and district input. And so we've had time to share this with the students and get some feedback from them. Initially, 2 students were supposed to be on our committee. But that is right about, I think our date was around March 11th when they were supposed to come over and meet with us, and that got interrupted. But we have shared it through our community program at the high school. We've shared the vision of the graduate. We've asked the students what skills they believe are most important for success as an adult. We've asked them where they think they are right now in terms of where do you think you're doing really well already? And we've got quite a few responses, and I can say, because some of them were open-ended responses, the kids took it pretty seriously. I didn't get any very silly comments or anything. We've got some really great comments from the students. So we shared it with our staff, of course, prior to sharing it with the students. Staff members were on the committee. We had worked throughout the development of the mastery project, including the vision of the graduate, with the WHEA, of course, so that their leadership understood where we were going, and it is slowly rolling out, mostly at the high school level. But we've also, under our partnership and work with Rosina Haskins, Dr. Haskins, we have come to the Equity and Diversity Council and shared with them, and I'm sure we will have other appointments with them, because of course one of the most important thing is this is reflective of all of our students, and that there are equal opportunities for all students to excel in this work, to practice this work, and that it represents what our whole community really believes. And that is a challenge, certainly, to make a statement that the whole community can support. So that's why this is continuous and ongoing. We also went to the One Community for Equity group, and we will be revisiting with them, I believe, in May. We're going to come back to One Community for Equity, and they have some good feedback for us. We were with a subgroup of One Community that was in March, and now we'll be revisiting that. I just include on the next slide all of the groups that One Community really represents, and I think it's important you see that, because that's not one voice. That is there are many, many voices in One Community. So I believe through that process, I hope through that process, we will get really great feedback. And of course, the outcome being that we can all agree to this vision, and we can all speak in a common voice to our students. So as we go on, I did want to share with you a little bit about where we are with the Mastery Experience project. I can do a much longer presentation for you on that. However, the tie tonight is that when the students, I might just remind you that there's so much you have to always remember that I imagine you lose some of the little pieces here. But the state of Connecticut changed the graduation requirements, and they went into effect for the class of 2023 and beyond. I have one of those children. I think some of you have children in 2023 and beyond. So they have to earn 25 credits, and one of those credits has to be an independent, personalized learning experience in a subject that's meaningful to them. And so our design of our mastery experience is that in mostly elective courses, you'd have the opportunity to petition to complete a project related to that course, and you would complete a proposal to your teacher. The team of teachers, that department would approve proposals, which is really a neat aspect of it, because when students now are approved, they don't get a comment from their teacher, "Good job, Paul, you can do your project." They get a letter from the department, which makes it feel like almost college. I look at Mr. Chang, and I think of a college department saying, "You are approved to do your dissertation." Well, not quite a dissertation, but it raises the element a little. It raises it up a little bit for the kids. That was that was an idea. That was not my idea. I wish it was, but it was our department supervisors thought it would be really cool if the kids got a letter saying, here's some more things you have to work on before your proposal's approved, or your proposal's approved. And they'll get a letter at the end from the department too. So the students who are sophomores actually have to complete this requirement, and it's been a real challenge, because believe me, we all know what teaching is like in COVID, and now we have to communicate an entirely new independent project and all the requirements to the students in the midst of being in hybrid, online, what have you. However, I can happily report, and I'm still very concerned about how to pull all of it off, to be frank, because we wanted to do it in the most genuine way for the students. There are easier ways to do this mastery experience. We could have all the students complete a very similar project in 1 or 2 classes, and I'm sure we would meet the state intention. But we wanted it to be as much as a personalized experience as possible. And that allows students to follow what they really want to do. But where we sit right now, we were gonna, our plan was to lift the Mastery Experience Project in the fall, and we were not able to in, all the decisions we were making. Tom knows like really all of that and all the things that teachers were doing, because remember, they're learning too, although they're a few steps ahead of the students, they're learning about this. But where we are now is 76 students have written proposals to do the Mastery Project, which is about 10% of the 10th graders. And they're really interesting projects. I just share some samples with you. 2 students have already signed up for an industry certification and achieved it and passed their test. And they are, I don't even know if I'll say it right, but basically they've earned certification in CompTIAA+. I sound like I know what I'm talking about, but it is a cybersecurity basic certification that is industry recognized, and they can put it on their resume, and they can walk into an technology company, and it would be a similar certification as an entry-level employee who's in charge of network security. I think that's amazing, personally. And I think it's the kind of opportunities that really speak to children. A lot of the kids who love drama and art have jumped out first. There are children writing and editing and acting. One child wants to write, edit, and act in a high-quality sound drama. I'm not sure what it is, but I think it's a podcast. But those are so popular, I fell in love with the one Serial, which was like so addictive, right? But the kids want to do stuff like that. Another child wants to write an original children's book on friendship and share it with elementary school children. Others, this one was really interesting. Analyze a famous chess game. And after that, Queen's Gambit moved me. I don't know if anybody saw it. Chess is like this whole new interest of mine. But analyze a famous chess game and write an original piece of music to represent the interpretation of that game. Really. And another child wants to research the factors that lead to the lack of black girl involvement in high school sports and what you can do for participation. So that's just a handful of them. There are 18 of students who are currently seeking the seal of biliteracy as sophomores and reflecting on their journey as from 3rd grade to the present and what it means to be biliterate. And so I'm nervous about it because, as I said, we went kind of big, right? We probably took this on in a way that is not the easiest, but we hope the truest for our students. At the end of the project, the final requirement is for the students to go back to the vision of the graduate and reflect on how they demonstrated these skills along the way. And so that's kind of the end of our formal presentation on the vision, but I wanted to make sure I heard from you and can clarify anything that I left off.
Thank you so much, and I'm sure we have questions. I start with Liz.
Yes, thank you so much for that presentation. So very informative. I guess the question that I have is each student, do they have their own advisor or someone who's going to follow them? And you said it starts sophomore year. Are they supposed to be working on it through to senior year, or could they complete it their sophomore year, or there is no timeline, it's just individualized for how their project is?
Well, the way we designed the project was if you intend to complete the mastery project, you put a proposal in for that year. We feel it will be very difficult for a child to just carry the same project on for 3 years. So they would intend to complete it while they were in that course, because the core courses are not courses you would complete your mastery experience in for a couple of reasons. One, the core course curriculum is much more confined. That's a good word, thank you. And secondly, you're not taking the core course necessarily because it's your interest. You're taking the core course because you have to take the core course. I mean, it might be your interest, right? But so we felt they fit better with the electives. So. And we also talked about sophomores. Our intention with the mastery project was to introduce it during freshman year, and have students start in sophomore year. Although we have had requests to start in freshman year, and we don't want to hold anyone back. I think the project will evolve, and we will be able to start earlier in the future as the project gets to be more well known and the parameters and expectations are more well-known. This has been a bumpy start because of such a lack of face-to-face time, and being able to communicate is, a new credit is hard to communicate anyways, especially such a different type of credit. And so your third question was about advisors, and the students don't have to have a direct advisor to do this. They take the class when they decide to complete their mastery project. They're choosing to do it in a qualifying course. So the teachers will check in with them, and if they can go to that teacher for help, and they can use any adult that they would like, but they are not assigned an advisor.
Okay, so I guess I wasn't clear about the electives. What are some examples of these elective courses?
So the first example would be, if I go to that list that we had, I think I can tie each one to a course. The first one is cryptography and cybersecurity.
Okay.
That's a class we offer in the high school. Mostly I think some freshmen take it, but it is a class that is very popular in the sophomore year and the junior year as well. The second is related to one of the music classes, but I'm not sure if it's band or orchestra or choir. I can't tell you what that child was in. The original children's book, I'm pretty sure, is in an English class, but it was an elective. So I'd have to check on one. I don't know if I can answer that.
Yep, and I'll just interject quickly. So all of our core disciplines, English, math, science, have elective offerings typically by the junior or senior year. And then, of course, family and consumer science, music, art, career and technical education, PE and health. Those are elective areas throughout. Although some of the 9th and 10th grade classes are a little bit more specifically say to PE or just a little bit more kind of core confined in their curriculum. But there are opportunities essentially in any discipline by the time you hit those electives, as opposed to 10th grade English or Algebra 1, in terms of where we have kind of asked our department supervisors and our teachers to brainstorm the types of projects that they might be able to offer or give guidance to students as students identify their passions and their interests.
I'm going to ask Paul to bring the website up where there's a great deal of information, program study, where there's a great deal of information on the Mastery Project. And I'd be happy to come back if Tom would like me to as we get further along with the Mastery Project to give you a formal presentation on that. But the qualifying mastery courses, the way we identified them is we worked with the department supervisors to say what would be the first set of courses that are a best fit. What courses do sophomores take? What are elective courses? Where are our teachers most comfortable right now? Our intention will be to, there you go, Paul, Mastery Experience. Our intention will be to expand the list of qualifying courses over time. But as with any new thing, we wanted to start with a somewhat limited selection and then move on. But there's a lot of our teachers who truly believe in the power of student choice, voice, exploration. And so they've jumped on and said, add all my classes. In fact, I think the entire music department wants every student who loves music to do independent work, write songs and perform and act and integrate. As I read through them, often I really don't know all the things that they're doing, but I will continue to work with the teachers to make sure that this is meaningful and students have the opportunity to follow their passion. I'm excited about that. It is like the heart of AP seminar and AP research, but not at the AP level, which is also nice because AP research and AP seminar are tremendous courses. For some kids, they think, oh, I don't know if I can do that. But they can. And this might be a way for them to see. They can complete their own work. And the vision of the graduate, of course, I think after doing all of this independent work, you go back and you reflect on the vision of the graduate and your growth along the way. And I don't want to press too far ahead, but because we haven't developed all of this yet, but I can foresee identifying stops along the K-12 pathway where we will use this and they can stop. I think of the 2 projects in 8th grade, the the 8th grade Witness Stone project, for instance, is a common project. It might be a great time to stop and reflect. The U.S. history research paper may be a time to stop and use the vision of the graduate as a reflection tool. There are opportunities in elementary school, maybe at the end of 5th grade, where you have a common project. I'll work with department supervisors to identify times along the way where students will have the opportunity, formalized opportunity, to stop and look at it. Also, we hope that the teachers will be speaking with the common language. One of the things, there are other groups that we need to go out to and get more feedback from, and that includes, we have a lot more work to do at elementary. Obviously, this was designed out of the mastery project, so it's had a high school focus so far, but it is not intended to stay there.
One of the goals, Liz, that gets to heart of your question too, I think, is that it's not just a teacher that could be working as a mentor with a student through this project. So, and this is one of the things we've kind of lost during COVID, is that community, and we're beginning to make strides in that outreach where we're using parents and volunteers for the community. And you've seen it sometimes in some of our AP research presentations where the people that are really evaluating everything along the way aren't necessarily the teachers. It's the people that are in that field that that student is using as a mentor. So hopefully that will continue to grow with this project over time.
I guess that was my concern, keeping it meaningful and also not making it just something else to check off. The kids are so busy, and rather than, maybe these courses aren't what's interesting to them. And so if they could have some outside person, they could complete this maybe in the summer or at a different point in time, that they could actually really delve into it and make it something meaningful for them, rather than just having it feel like something else that they have to do.
Yeah, we've had long discussions about, support for students who might want to complete external programs, not directly. There's more than one pathway. And again, when I come back and do another presentation on it, but there is not supposed to be just one pathway. There's more than one pathway. The main pathway may be through qualifying courses, because I think a lot of students, through their electives, they're taking those electives for a reason. They like that subject matter, so that's great. But there are students who do really interesting things outside of school that they love, and they can, we continue to explore ways to make that an opportunity to complete your mastery project. Either way, you will be reflecting on the vision of the graduate, which is great.
Yeah, I was simply going to add, and we're talking about, I just want to make sure we keep it straight, we are talking about two different but very related items. We're talking clearly about, the vision of the graduate, which is that set of skills, attitudes, dispositions for students that we're looking to engender. Mastery experience being a piece, what it looks like by the time of the culmination of the student's experience. In terms of external, that is definitely something that we build into it. But the idea of wanting it to be meaningful for students, you're hitting on an absolutely critical nature. Why, when Ann says we kind of took the hard road, was because we wanted to be able to afford students the ability to let this be meaningful to them on an individual level. And it informs why they're coupled very heavily within elective courses, because those are the courses that students choose and self-select, not out of requirement for credits or credit distribution as much as an interest area. So that is the nature of our elective program. Is if I'm a musically oriented person, I tend to lean in that direction to what my available electives are, versus I have a passion for computer science, I'm going to go down that road, or visual arts, or what have you. I did want to say that while a lot of the language and the formalization of how we're packaging this does come out of graduation requirements, it is very closely tied to work that we had undergone pretty much the year before we started this work, working with our professional learning and evaluation committee, where we were charged with kind of recasting our mission statement, re-looking at and reshaping our values and our goals. And what we found, we had a very solid mission statement that we believed in, that we felt we could probably just shorten. We felt that we had the goals that we had identified, or the values that we had identified, were very logical and things that we believed in our hearts. But what we saw was we had things that we were identifying as values, some of which were things for us as educators and for as an educational community, adult things. And then some of the things were things that we were trying to create and inspire in children. And so we took this opportunity to kind of say, well, let's take these things that are about what we're trying to inspire in children, and let's build the framework here. And you saw, some of you saw that a couple of years ago before the pandemic, when we had rolled out our district development plan and kind of repackaged it, and we talked a lot about it at that time. I think instead of using the phrase vision of the graduate, I used vision of the educated person or educated citizen, but it was the same work, and it was the work that had been kind of inspired from our previous work, but built on and fleshed out to much greater detail by the work of Anne and her committees. And so what we're looking to do in our short term, as Anne kind of pointed out, is certainly ensure that we have consensus around what those targets are, because then when we get into the deeper work with the mastery experience, and certainly that will gain a lot of momentum next year, as that class of 2023 shifts into its junior year, the biggest part of their mastery experience and their whole determining what their project might be is for them to be able to do that self-reflection on the vision of the graduate and demonstrate how the project that they're pursuing really demonstrates that they have mastered those skills of collaboration, communication, problem solving, those attitudes and dispositions of equity and fairness to all, of honor and integrity and perseverance. So, that's kind of the order of March, if you will, in terms of how we're working on these projects.
Liz, you all set? Okay. Jason?
All right. Thank you guys for that awesome presentation, and I really applaud the process that you've gone through in doing this and involving lots of different stakeholders and kind of feeling through it as like a living document. And I think that's really generative. It builds investment in it across, from different areas. And especially about the self-reflection dimension of that. I think that's a really valuable learning tool. And even in, my elementary school children who when they do the parent-teacher, when we have evaluation night, and they are reflecting on their own learning in second grade. It's amazing. And I don't think I did that until like graduate school. So I think this is a really terrific compass to orient, the work of the schools. In this, one word I was looking for that I didn't see was service. And and I could see it being embedded in some of these other dimensions. But I think for me, service has a really specific quality about kind of understanding need of others and being able to problem solve or to think through a problem where that someone else might be facing, not them personally, right? And I think that's another kind of dimension that, in some ways, I could put service in any one of these, things. And so one question is just, how can we think about service in that? And then maybe is the mastery class perhaps a vehicle to conduct service or service learning in some fashion? And that leads me to my second point or question, I guess, And, you know, I'm really intrigued by the mastery course because I think self-directed learning is an amazing, you know, opportunity to have at the high school level. I did my bachelor's was a self-directed degree program, and I spent 75% of it in study abroad classes. So, yeah, I really value that and think that that's an incredible opportunity to bring to students in the high school. And one piece that I think could, at least in the way that the mastery course is designed, it doesn't seem to, at the outset at least, doesn't seem to have a degree of collaboration or teamwork built into it because it's a kind of individual project. And so I'm wondering if there's flexibility or possibility for groups of students to do a mastery course together that could generate, you know, that could hit some of these other collaborative dimensions, teamwork, leadership, you know, those kinds of, you know, practical kinds of social skills that are involved in the execution of, you know, of a learning project. And so those are, you know, those are some things that I think, you know, in listening to you and feeling excited about the direction, kind of thinking, oh, how might this work, or how could this kind of fit into that, or maybe you've explored it in another way. The third thing, I promise this is it, is there a plan for like a year-end fair or something where students can share their projects at the end of the year? Because I think that would be a really valuable way to kind of show off the work that students have done and for them to see their peers' work as well. So that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, no, great questions, and thank you. You could have been on the committee. Services talked about quite a bit. And that's why I like bringing it to groups, because they'll like point out something that maybe we did talk about but didn't include, or maybe we should rethink or something. I can tell you some districts went about the mastery experience in a more simple way. For instance, maybe they made a requirement that all students do their own type of service learning in American Gov class. And that was something I know some districts are doing. We chose not to do that. Although there's some choice there, if you're not ready to do service, it's not, your maturation isn't there, it wouldn't be meaningful for you, we didn't want to limit it. I think service is a good question to look at again in the descriptors and see where it fits or could fit, and we'll keep it certainly in mind. Group projects were discussed, and to start off, we tried to keep it a little simpler because it's a big lift for teachers. So we're trying to keep it a little simpler to start, but I don't think group projects could always, or maybe if we had a limited size, maybe partner projects or something, might be an area we could expand to. Certainly collaboration is one of our outcomes. This doesn't necessarily lead to it, although you might be collaborating with others to complete your project. So that was discussed. We thought we'd keep the parameters, because it is so wide to begin with, is a little bit tighter because we allowed so much student choice. Year-end demonstration projects were discussed. The one thing I think that people felt strongly about is it shouldn't be required, because we do have some very introverted people. I've learned that at least 30% of the population is introverted. I think Tom's in that part of the population, right, Tom? Yeah. But, you know, we certainly don't want a forced demonstration, because some kids, you know, it's just not their thing. But yet I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for voluntary demonstration of learning, and I think we can lift that piece as well. So I think it's going to take a while to get it exactly where we want it to be, but it is certainly coming along, and I appreciate all of your feedback, service, groups, and year-end demonstrations.
One of the things that I was about to announce last spring, I had worked with Nathan First at UConn, and we were going to partner with UConn and do a fair of the AP seminar presentations and pick ones from all the schools in the state that do that. And we were going to announce that last April, I think, and then that got put down. But that's the kind of thing we definitely want to be a part of and televise it for people in our community to see. This is the work that our kids are doing. So we're right on that with you.
Ari?
I actually don't have any questions, but I just wanted to point out two things that really struck me with regard to the vision of the graduate. I think it really continues to speak to the district's commitment to looking at the whole student or the whole individual. I love the way that it's broken down with kind of the attitudes and dispositions, which I would think falls under that social emotional functioning. And then even under the kind of academic skills, I love that it's kind of higher order level of skills. It's a little bit more abstract, and it's really about implementing the skills that you learned, during your classes at high school. So I feel like it has this kind of lifted, more abstract, higher order level of functioning. And the other piece that I found really compelling about it is, even though this is a school district and it's a district, it's within the school setting, kind of reaching out and collaborating with other, students themselves, parents, the community, because I think everybody has a different definition of what a student should be or what a student should look like. So I really appreciate the fact that you didn't just kind of look at it through an educator's lens, and you opened up that lens to get a bigger, a holistic picture of what a student should be. So I appreciate the presentation, and I really appreciate the lens that you guys chose to look at it through.
I'm glad to hear that the visuals are always important, and I'm glad to hear it communicated something to you. We have thought about rethinking it because we don't want anyone to see them individually. So I might need to hire the graphic artist back to do some work to show them the connection among them. That's another thing. We have a lot of ideas, so as you all recognize, it's not complete, but it is, I think, we have more than just a core of where we're going. It is not complete, so the feedback is great, and even the graphic, I'm glad it worked with you, but sometimes we say it doesn't show enough interconnection, and we might need to do a better job on that.
Lorna?
Thank you. My question segues well following Ari's comment. And so thank you again. As everyone said, I echoed all that has been shared. I appreciated hearing you use several words such as collective vision, aspiration, and North Star, and with the emphasis being on preparing the student for their future. Very much appreciate and respect hearing that. Question is, in this process of them learning, and again, it being decided by them what they're aspiring to do, can you share a moment where a student may have had a hurdle and where he or she had to recognize, I need to overcome this hurdle, and how do they go about doing that in a way that continued to have them to move towards their North Star?
That is probably, in many ways, my biggest fear of everything, because we have left this pretty open. So a couple ways. One is, let's say a child and we've had 2 children drop the mastery project from their proposal. They're not going to complete it. So number 1, you drop the mastery project, no penalty, no fault, no foul, no F, no anything. All that will show in your transcript when you do complete it is P or nothing. I mean, obviously to graduate you need it, but up until that last semester, it will be P or nothing. So you can try and there's no penalty for trying. So that's number 1. That's one support. 2, there's been a lot of discussion about how to support everyone. Some kids are going to jump out there and they're very, they have a lot of self-advocacy, and we're continue to think about, with the department, what opportunities can we also provide? I think a little bit about some very narrow individual ways to do this, and then some larger, kind of wider pipelines to have kids complete a meaningful project, such as the Seal of Biliteracy. There are a lot of kids who love their world language, who are fluent already in a language. Now they just have to become fluent in English, and then there will be Seal of Biliteracy. So that's one support, is to talk to the departments about what are opportunities you know of in your field where we can promote to students who get stuck. I'm not sure what to do. Lisa Daly, our department supervisor for physical education and health, came to me and said, there's a need for kids to be referees and get trained in CPR and be referees and be youth referees. And what if they got trained? What if they did their mastery project about, mentoring youth and becoming referees and learning, could we put something like that together? I said, I think we could. I think we could speak to kids who love movement and love to be outside and love younger kids. So one way is to continue to think broadly about all the ways, because kids will get stuck and they may not know where to go. So their counselors will be important, the teachers, and I think all of us, to keep promoting ideas and giving them opportunities if they get stuck. And I think we have to be really, really concerned with kids who may struggle. The other thing I need to say very clearly, which I haven't brought up at all, is if by the time you hit your senior year you have not completed it and don't have a plan to, there'll be a course through which you can complete the Mastery Experience. It will be called the Mastery Experience Seminar. People told me not to say that because the acronym is MESS. And that's not what I mean. But it's interesting because we thought that will be a great way. It will be a lot like an AP seminar class, except it wouldn't have as much of the rigor of an AP. But you'd get the constant support of a teacher only focused on finishing that project. And it's a great catch-up opportunity, too, because I got some ideas from, I think it was Canton Public Schools. They have a similar course, and in it they also put some other things that the kids may be struggling to complete, such as their college essay. That could be in there. Their FAFSA form. That could be in there. If they're going to spend a whole semester in the course, you could do your project, you could complete your college essay, you could complete your FAFSA form, we could get your resume finished. For kids who struggle to get things, that might be a great way. And I've had the Pupil Service Department come to me, Stacy Kellogg specifically, and ask what supports could we make sure that class has for special education students who might struggle with specific needs. So we are thinking along that lines. I think there's other ways we can support them, but that's our initial thinking.
And I just want to piggyback one item that doesn't address your question, Lorna, but you made me think of it, Ann, when you talked about the course, because I've heard a couple of words. We have courses that are offering mastery experience within them. We have elective courses. We have the senior level course that will be a course specifically designed to enable students to complete this mastery experience credit. And then, going back to Elizabeth's comment, we have independent opportunities for students to engage. And one of the things that's just popped into my head, you've heard me say that we're going to be working on a Saturday program at the middle school level for students throughout the remainder of this year and into next year. And we have educators from our students from our future educators of diversity that are volunteering their time. And Ann and I were talking, we'd like to find a way, if you're going to dedicate some time and you're going to be working, mentoring kids and helping support that, as we look at the skills and attributes and dispositions, we look at the communication, the collaboration, we're fairly certain there's a way to construct, if a student would like to, a mastery experience out of an experience like that. So I want to be careful when we're using words like class, project, and experience. It's all falling under that larger umbrella of experience, and we are trying to keep this as broad as possible to allow as many meaningful pathways and inlets to this for students of all abilities. And to Ann's point, if they try something and it doesn't turn out to be the passion that they thought, no penalty. We'll let them, consider something else and try again.
Thank you very much. Appreciate hearing that. I'm also hearing how it's very much a life skill as well, because who doesn't have a challenge in their life at some point in time, and the earlier they're able to learn how to overcome them, the better. So thank you both so much.
Amanda?
Hi, thank you. Most of my questions have already been addressed, so I just wanted to make a comment. I can't tell you what a good feeling it was to open up this part of our board packet and realize that we know that you approach this as a district so sincerely. And my background, my training is in public education, but I've had a lot of time to apply private education and Montessori education. So it's been fascinating particularly over the last 10 to 15 years, to study the West Hartford district and see how you've responded as things have changed, as mandates have changed from the Connecticut State Department of Education, how federal mandates have changed, how legislation has changed. And at each of those stages, what I saw was the team trying so hard. I think we all remember those summers when the teachers spent the entire summer trying to figure out how to meet certain mandates while still having meaningful experiences for the kids. And every year and in every conversation we have here, I can hear the thinking always going back to what kind of people are we trying to raise? How are we approaching this? And it's not easy to do in a public system because the things that work well in Montessori, which is free from testing requirements and mandates, or the things that work well in a private system where you have fewer kids in the classroom, those don't scale up to a public system. But a lot of the characteristics can be utilized, like the different modalities for assessments and real work experiences and oral history and all of the things that we've been trying to do. And I keep hearing year after year after year that intensity behind trying to work with the framework that we're given and all of those mandates that are not easy to work with. To still keep the focus on how can we make this meaningful and keep the joy of learning. I see a real growth, especially in the last 5 years or so, in the way that the district is approaching assessments and trying to find a place for testing and do what we need to do to meet our mandates and use it purposefully because there are good purposes for it. But to make sure that there's other ways to not lose that spark and to use the community more. And those are things that I think are an energy output that comes from a drive and a commitment that this needs to be sincere. So I find that deeply reassuring as a parent. And I think that professionally, it's been fascinating to see that it's consistent over the last 15 years. And some of the things that we've wanted to do, we needed the community to catch up. It's like having kids learn outside in the winter. We can talk, constantly about the value of that, but until people realize that it can be done and kids can put the coat on, we can't do that. But now, through this year, we've had an opportunity for people to get comfortable through necessity with some of those other elements of learning. How can we use the summer? How can we use different time periods to get at some of these things? And I think that just continues to speak to whatever you're doing with the professional development times on Wednesdays and all of the other ways that the staff gets together to keep making sure this feels relevant because it's translating. And for a public system to be able to do that as we've been squeezed with things that are out of our control, it's an effort that is something that we don't talk as much about. And you can see it throughout the schools. Something might not be in every single school, but it's being tried in certain schools so that it can be modeled after. And I see that over and over and over again, and I just wanted to bring that into the conversation because it's clear that it's purposeful.
Thank you so much for that comment, and I have to point at our superintendent for his continued focus always on students. It's really where it comes from.
Mark, did you have a question too? Anyone else? Well, thank you so much. We look forward to learning more over the next several months. Thanks for all your hard work on this. All right, we'll move on to routine matters, and our first item is the financial report and the approval of the financial report for the period ending February 28th, 2021. And I will turn it over to my colleague, Mark. And welcome, Liz.
All right, thank you. Not many changes from the last report, but I'll go over some of the details that we have. So in our general fund, we have a surplus of about $162,000 at this point. And remember, again, this is the February 28th. In salaries, so I'm just going to go over, and then I'll throw some details at the line items. But the salaries, our overall salary account is expected to have a surplus of $1.2 million, and our benefits about $35,000 to exceed, and purchase services about $350,000. And then supplies, material, capital, we're going to exceed our budget about $250,000. So if you turn your pages over to 12 and 13 for some of the detail. So your department salaries, 5111 line item, you'll see 489,601,000. So this is the remote school year with additional principals and assistant principals for remote learning. It's about $100,000 wash. There really won't be an impact after we go next year, but this is just part of the COVID again. If you look at your librarian salaries just below that at 5113, you'll see that the librarians actually were in the classroom and such, so we have almost $250,000 there. If you go down to 5140, that number there is $100,000. We're still waiting on a couple. Those are additional cleaning supplies and such like that too. But it as maintenance, which you see down in 5150, there's 2 vacancies, so we have a $100,000 there as those for those 2 vacancies that have not been filled yet. If you go into the next piece, the salaries, I'll go into teacher substitutions first because that's a larger number too. That's 5180. We have a low substitution rate, believe it or not, and so $350,000 there, and the teacher assistants as well. If you go down into the salaries, the unemployment is dropping every year, or every month I should say, so we're going to see that continue as well. And then in benefits, we actually have more TAs and CNAs, part of the professional technical services, and that's again for for our safety as well with the CNAs. And then if you look below that, pupil transportation, $150,000. That's really around the special education, the out-of-district students, and our reimbursement state. We're estimating that. I guess we have an average reimbursement of $85,000 to $90,000, and we're getting a little less than that right now. If you actually go to the next page, our grants, no significant changes here. As always, we spend our oldest money first, and then above the line is next year's and the 1 year, which we'll spend by June 2022. And then below the line, that's those things that have been fully spent. Like if you look at the ESSER grant at down below, FY20 $902, that's been fully expended, and then the almost $2 million has been fully spent. And then the ESSER 2 will be on next month's report, so we'll see it there as well. If you turn the pages, no real significance here. This is just a special funds report. And then if we go into our nutritional service fundings, we're anticipating almost $450,000 loss, and it's almost $80,000 a month we're losing. Right? Is that $80,000 a month we're losing? And we awarded additional grant funding for this as well. So the grant was $350,000 to help with that loss. So we're hoping to that'll help pay off dividends on that. Any questions, if that summarizes my portion?
I'm just going to ask, thank you, Mark, for providing that. And after we had our meeting, I did ask Liz to get back to us with some more information about nutrition services. So would you share that with everyone? What I'll just indicate what the question was. You can see on the nutrition services page 15 that the average student lunches are obviously way down from last year. And our middle school and high school students aren't actually in school for lunch, but they're encouraged to grab and go. So my question was around whether the decrease in our average student lunches was mainly restricted to middle and high school students, and we were like pretty stable on the elementary level, or whether we were seeing a decrease all across the district.
Exactly, and what we ended up seeing, surprisingly, is that when we look at an elementary school level and compare February of last year to February of this year, the average number on a daily basis of school lunches at the elementary level has actually come back and is a little bit higher. So I think that speaks well and is a good indicator that our program next year will rebound, that when we're able to have a more typical schedule, when we're able to have all of our middle and high school students back, that this fund will be able to maintain its self-sufficiency. As Tom had... What?
Well, not definitely, though. That's the...
No, not
the
definitely.
The problem is, it's a great thing, the free lunches for everybody. But if we have, I don't want to jump in, but if we have more lunches going out, our cost is for employees. And if we don't have the a la carte spending coming in the same way, it could lead to. So it's not a definite yet. I feel good, but I didn't want to jump on you there. I don't want to.
You're correct. I am not guaranteeing anything. However, I am optimistic. Certainly with hearing the good news today that our students will be able to receive free lunches for another school year, but also hoping that we'll have a more typical setup where students are able to come into the cafeteria. They will be able to receive a free lunch if that's what they would like, but we would also like to be able to sell some of the a la carte items that we have done in the past, that perhaps the combination of those two factors will allow us to be profitable. But I cannot make any such guarantees.
Mark?
There's been a lot of latitude with school lunches, and I know on a federal level, sodium intake, calories, and things like that play particularly into our school lunches and what we have to offer. It's not I'll date myself, it's not in the 80s when we can have a clam roll and things like that. And, so,
where did you go to school where you had a clam roll for lunch?
Oh, they were the best, I'll tell you. And so I'm surprised you didn't have clam rolls. I really had them. They're really good. Anyways, but is there going to be any relaxing of the federal requirements on nutritional levels coming up next year at all?
I don't believe that there will be, and in fact, every year we ask you to adopt a healthy food certification, and so that commits us to staying within certain federal guidelines. And certainly it's always our goal to make sure students have the healthiest food available for them, so I don't expect relaxation on that.
So just for edification for my fellow members here, is that back in the day, not too far actually, the a la carte was a significant cost or a money generating for us. The ice cream and the things that weren't so nutritious, people bought. And then when the nutritional levels came in, people weren't buying it. So this a la carte, we used to be able to sell waters and chocolate milks and things like that, and that kind of went away. And some of that deficit, we actually paid for the cafeteria and Bristow with that a la carte money. That's how significant it used to be, and now we're at deficits. So
yeah, Conard's too. If you go into the Conard cafeteria area, the serving area, that was done in 2008, and that was a major renovation. That was all covered by those funds in those days.
It was, and I would just add that I think Tim Przinski, our Director of Nutrition Services, really has done a great job to stay within guidelines and provide other a la carte items. I'm sure you all remember the cider that he was able to get from local farmers, and so I think he's really, we're really making an effort to get things that both meet the guidelines and are an attractive option. But yes, some of the items of the past are no longer sold.
Any other questions? If not, can we have a motion to accept the financial report or approve the financial report?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Second by Liz. Any further discussion? If not, I will try your minds. All those in favor of approving the financial report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Abstentions? Then the ayes have it and the report is adopted. Thank you. Next, we move on to approval of the minutes, and I'm seeking a motion to approve the minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting from April 6th, 2021. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Amanda. And a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ari. Any discussion about the minutes? If not, I will try your minds. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the April 6th board meeting, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Abstentions? And the ayes have it. You can't lick your finger to turn the page. Takes a little extra minute there. Sorry about that. Okay, moving to information and reports. Any board members have communications and reports from other boards or organizations? All right. Any other information and discussions? No? Non-staff communications and reports, and we're going to have the reports from our student board representatives who are joining us by Google Meet. And I think there's a slight delay on WHC TV where they have to watch us. So Lily, when you are ready, just wave your hand and let me know that you're ready and I'll put you on. Lily, can you hear me? Okay, can you go first?
Yeah, sorry. I apologize for the delay. I was just getting to the introduction part, but here we go.
And can everyone
This Thursday during Community, all seniors will watch The First Day, a documentary about the NBA player Chris Herron, and they will discuss the contents of the film afterwards. The community of concern will also show the film on Thursday night, which will be followed by a panel discussion with local mental health experts. Prom details were announced before spring break. Prom will be held on Sunday, May 30th at the Farmington Polo Grounds. The current capacity is 200 attendees, but it may change if the Department of Public Health changes its regulations. Again, a lot of the stuff about the end of the year events is really tentative right now. Vaccination clinics for West Hartford Public School vaccination clinics for West Hartford students 16 and up will occur at the Yukon Health Pavilion in Farmington from April 21st to April 24th. Registration for these appointments occurred over spring break. And finally, as Mr. Moore mentioned earlier, Hall's Concert Jazz Band has been selected as one of 15 finalists in the Essentially Ellington competition. Congratulations to these extremely talented musicians. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Rochelle. Hi, everyone. I hope you all had a wonderful April vacation. This week, Conard is hosting Earth Week, where the school's Instagram page and hallways are decorated with facts, posters, and goals on how students can be more environmentally friendly. During Earth Week, students are asked to reflect on their own actions and find ways to live more sustainably. As Lily mentioned, this Thursday, Conard seniors will view former NBA player Chris Herron's The First Day, a film discussing youth substance abuse and mental and social well-being. Parents will also have an opportunity to view this film later in the evening and attend a panel on this topic. Conard's senior prom is officially announced to take place on Saturday, May 29th at the Farmington Polo Grounds. As COVID-19 guidelines continue to change by the state, the school is hopeful that every student who wants to attend prom will have the opportunity to do so. On that note, Conard is continuing to plan most of the end of the year celebrations. Spring sports is in full swing at Conard, and most notably, Conard's Gavin Sherry won the Gatorade Player of the Year for the second time for boys cross country. And finally, prior to April vacation, Conard celebrated National Assistant Principals Week. So thank you to Mr. Fisk, Ms. Tringali, and Mr. Hines. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Future business, announcement of future meeting dates. We will be meeting here again in this room on Tuesday, May 4th, Tuesday, May 18th, and Tuesday, June 1st, all at 7 p.m. And fingers crossed, all here in this room with the opportunity to participate through Google Meets as needed. Are there any requests for future agenda items? Okay, and I don't believe, no, we don't have any visitors on the Google Meet, and I don't think we have any visitors in the room who are here to make comments. We don't have an executive session. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Thank you, Lorna, and a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jason. Without objection, meeting is adjourned at 8:32. Thank you, everybody.